Hello, today with us we are pleased to have Dharmesh Pandya, CEO and Managing Director of Leidos Technologies, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker LYT. Dharmesh, welcome.
Thank you, Craig. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me on RedChip TV.
You're quite welcome. Can you provide us, Dharmesh, with a broad overview of Leidos Technologies, particularly focusing on the core aspects of your business and how it stands out in the current market landscape?
Absolutely. Craig, Leidos Technologies was a labor of love that we set out to form back in 2019. And Leidos Technologies is a platform technology services company. And this was a culmination of my entire management team's experience over decades. And we were very excited to try and put together a technology company which was built on a series of successful models that we'd seen, developed over the last two decades in China and in the U.S. Essentially, we are a company that sets out to build its own ecosystem of subscribers, and to that captive ecosystem of subscribers, our intention and our business plan hinges around the fact that we add additional services as we go around the process of value accretion and value addition of services to customers. So yes, we're very excited in this process. We started off this journey with the intention to grow our subscriber base as quickly as possible. But over the years that we've been in business, we've also driven our focus to ensure that we continue on this innovation cycle of adding additional services to this captive group of subscribers.
Now, your origins are in India, and the company is active there. I want to talk about that a minute. And given the rapid expansion of digital services and, of course, telemedicine, which I'm sure you're going to be wanting to speak about here, in India, the country with the highest population in the world, Dharmesh, can you elaborate on the size of the market opportunity, which I'm sure is huge, that Leidos is targeting?
Craig, I'd be lying if I didn't say that the size of the market and the opportunity that it presents is actually daunting. I continue to remind myself that it's not the task of any one company, but that's kind of what excites us as a company in terms of the fact that we're uniquely positioned. Obviously, a big portion of my management team has roots in India, but we've also spent over 3 decades here in the U.S. working with companies in the Valley, mentoring startup companies as well. But we find ourselves in a unique situation where a lot of the innovation that we see in the U.S., we, through our ecosystem and our platform that we have rolled out in India, have the opportunity to actually roll out that technology to the almost remotest parts of India. And the telemedicine business was very unique because when we commenced Leidos Technologies, we were just at the cusp of the COVID-19 pandemic. And what that did was, in that window where mobility was hindered and healthcare was a big concern for subscribers, the fact that we could use technology and provide relief and accessibility to our subscribers in a market like India was almost a form of validation of our business model. It was no longer just about being on a video call with your healthcare service provider. The access to remote patient monitoring devices, and even the hardest of environments where transportation was a challenge, access was a challenge. I think this encouraged us to know that, look, we could use state-of-the-art technology that we had access to in the U.S. in the healthcare sector and deploy that around the world to communities that didn't have access to even regular, mechanisms for healthcare.
You talk about your business model. It is really unique. You talk about sticky subscribers. In fact, in our conversations offline, you and I were talking about your sticky subscribers. You're talking about creating an ecosystem for those subscribers. How do all of these components fit together, and especially the telemedicine component? How do they fit together, Dharmesh, to synergize and drive that business?
Craig, it's a very, very interesting question. And very early on, our management team, which has been around for decades and experts in their own field, realized that when we started off Leidos, we didn't want to necessarily just play the valuation game or the subscriber headcount game that was so prevalent in Silicon Valley. Our intention was to build a business that was predictable, scalable, repeatable, and which actually had the impact of including populations that were underserved with respect to technology from day one. Now, on the face of it, our subscriber acquisition obviously hinged around acquiring subscribers of existing cable companies. And even though that was not popular at that point in time, we learned very quickly on that even though there was a lot of discussion around cord cutting, the fact that in a market like India, there was still a cable connection at home and one television around which typically a family would watch programming on a given daily basis or on a weekly basis. So even though people started consuming content on their phones and in their iPads, the cable connection in most homes still was an integral part of consuming content and delivering content into these consumers. From our perspective, the fact that this business, these cable companies have been around for more than 2 or 3 decades, the infrastructure, the fiber, underground cable, all this infrastructure was valuable from our perspective because it gave us access to subscribers who were used to paying a monthly bill for access to content and the connectivity, which was an important part. In our world of technology companies, subscriber acquisition often becomes the biggest expense and the biggest challenge for companies. We like the cable company, path because we found these subscribers to be sticky. Cable companies, do not lose customers very easily. There is a churn in the business, but it's a very small component compared to other online OTT or content creating platforms. We started off that journey and we were very comfortable that once we entered the home, we were then able to be the point of contact to offer additional services. So healthcare technology is an easy extension of that initial connection that we establish with customers. Once you have a customer or a family, in this case, which consists of, on an average of 4 or 5 people per home, being able to offer the additional services in terms of healthcare, healthcare services or access to healthcare technology was an easy extension on our part without significant infrastructure expense. So the subscribers were already there. The infrastructure was in place. This is what made our model predictable, scalable, and repeatable. But more importantly, as you said, these customers are sticky. They've been around with the company and the cable company on the ground for decades, and for the most part, would continue to be our customers if we can offer additional services to them.
You mentioned those sticky subscribers. You're already in 1 million homes, which, as you noted, translates into 4 million people that you can reach. And you're aggressively attacking a massive problem in India, which is getting healthcare to people. I think that is just absolutely commendable. Another thing, Dharmesh, that my book, people I talk to in the investing world are always concerned about is managerial ownership. You have an extremely compelling story to tell there. Introduce us to your management team, and I want to hear about that ownership stake that you personally got in Leidos.
Craig, Leidos Technologies is, as I mentioned to you early on, was something we began as a labor of love. And essentially, my management team is essentially representative. Each of these team members has been or has performed a role in a public company or as a public company CEO in their own capacities in their own careers. So I'm actually blessed with having a management team that is experienced, knows how to leverage technology into emerging markets and high growth markets. But more importantly, we're committed to what we do at Leidos Technologies, and I think it starts right from my vision. I believe in the story completely to a point where I currently own about 64% of the company, and the intention here is obviously that we are completely dedicated to growing this company, and we're as a management team, we're very excited at the opportunity in front of us. So in many ways, we feel privileged and blessed that we find ourselves uniquely positioned as Leidos Technologies as the perfect segue between what we've learned and what we've helped build in terms of the US experience, and then translating that into a high growth population like India, where we can actually see how technology makes an impact, amongst people. So I think that's something that we pride ourselves in. And yes, we've had tremendous support from investors in the past, and I think our commitment as a management team is to deliver value to our investors and to our shareholders. But obviously, through that process of making value additions to our subscribers overseas in India.
I just want to reiterate again to our viewers, we are now talking not just to the CEO of this company, but a man who owns 65% of the outstanding shares. Just totally commendable, and I wish you all the best with that, Dharmesh. Now, to wrap up, give us the elevator pitch, the value proposition. In a concise way, Dharmesh, tell us right now, why should anyone look at Leidos Technologies?
Craig, we are a very ambitious company. Even though we're about 5 years into the program, we're a very ambitious company. And if you see our metrics and numbers, we are undervalued primarily because our focus has been to grow the company. When we look amongst our peers, there aren't many platform technology companies which are EBITDA positive very early on in their growth cycle. It's easy to kind of play the subscriber game and the valuation game. That's something that we have actively stayed away from because we feel that through the growth of the business is where the value accretion happens. And this is a long-term play from our perspective because the opportunity, the market size in the US and in India, obviously, as I said, excites us to a point where we think this is going to be our work's cut out for us for the next several years in the process. And look, I think we're committed to growing this in the process, not only in terms of the progress we've made, but there are additional offerings that we have, contemplated and are working towards going through the process. And I think there's a dynamism in the two markets that we focus on currently in the US and in India. Over a period of time, we're going to be growing our US business as well in terms of the content creation platforms and telemedicine, offerings in the process. So look, we find ourselves, as I mentioned earlier, in a unique opportunity where we're committed to making the most of that opportunity and converting on it. But I think from an investor perspective, we are obviously a good candidate for investment just on the metrics as we see right now. But my commitment and the management team's commitment is that we want to be able to kind of grow this company to even dizzier heights going forward.
We agree with you, Dharmesh, and I would say this is an interesting and even inspiring story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.